Welcome to California in Focus. I'm Keegan Kernodle, and today we're talking about a 17 state and territory coalition that's led by California, Washington, and Colorado that is suing the Trump administration to maintain access to $5 billion in EV charger funding. Joining me with more on this story is the Center Square's California state reporter, Kenneth Schrupp. Kenneth, what's going on with this?
Hey, Keegan. So these are 17 states and territories that are trying to get continued access to the remainder of this $5 billion pot that was established in 2021 by Congress in the Infrastructure and Investment and Jobs Act. Most of this money has already been spent. Most of the money has already been given out. $3.3 billion has been awarded. So this is a lawsuit on getting continued access to this $1.7 billion that's advocated on a state-by-state basis on the same allocation as federal highway funding. So it follows a familiar formula. The funny thing here, though, is that the majority of the coalition, including two of the three lawsuit leaders, California and Washington, they've built zero chargers despite getting over $3 billion in funding over the past 4 fiscal years, which really does beg the question, why haven't they built any yet? What puts them in a position to say we need more money for a program that we can't administer and build a single EV charger? That seems ridiculous. So as this case moves forward, I think we're actually going to look at the rules in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and see whether or not the Department of Transportation followed the rules outlined by Congress. And
now what's the basis of their case?
Well, again, this goes back to the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. It says that the FHWA is supposed to give 90 days notice of problems it sees with states' charger network implementation plans, and give 60 days notice after that 90 days has expired that they will be putting the funding on pause. The issue here is that the Department of Transportation just pulled the plans one day after the Trump administration signed a executive order to end EV mandates. The coming congressional budget proposal from Republicans would end the federal EV credit program that's $7,500 per car to subsidize EVs. So this is something that Congress is separately moving forward on. But the question here is whether or not there's executive authority to permanently really pause it for a long time this funding, because it seems like the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act did say that this funding is going to be available until it's all spent. So how long can you put a pause on? Can you even deviate from the actual instructions in the bill saying, okay, you pretty much need 150 days minimum before you pause these fundings and suspend a plan and pause these funds? I'm guessing a judge is going to say that it's possible to suspend the funding if you want to, but you have to follow proper procedure. So we're going to order you to continue providing this funding, but until you follow procedure. We've seen this happen with other federal lawsuits. There have been nationwide federal judges issuing orders to resume payments that the administration has stopped. And this will probably be another one of those.
Now, Kenneth, I think you mentioned the technology for these EV chargers is rapidly getting better. So why are they funding these now instead of waiting for them to get better?
That's a really good question. It is true. In a few years, we're starting to see massive or planned rollouts by automakers of solid state battery technology. These batteries will be cheaper. They will be able to be charged much more quickly. It might be as fast or even faster to charge your EV than it is to fill up your car with gas. And pretty much every state but California, that's guaranteed to be a lot cheaper. So for consumers, it seems like EVs are going to be pretty sweet. They won't need subsidies anymore. Should they even have subsidies in the first place? That's a question beyond the scope of this show. But let's look at the charging technology specifically, because that's what we're covering today. The last quarter of 2019, there were only 4,000 so-called fast chargers in the country. Over half of them put out less than 50 kilowatts. That's very slow by today's standards. 2 years later, in 2021, the plurality of the nation's over 10,000 fast chargers put out between 150 and 249 kilowatts. So they got between 3 and 5 times faster. The plurality got to between 3 and 5 times faster than what the majority were 2 years ago. 2 years later, speeds went up significantly again. By the end of 2023, we had 24,000 fast chargers. Over half of them, or almost half of them, put out between 250 and 349 kilowatts. So the next generation, 350 kilowatts or more, that's already growing rapidly. So we're going to probably have data that shows similar growth and similar improvement over time. We're getting to a point where a 60 kilowatt hour Tesla Model 3 needs about 8 to 12 hours to charge at a basic Tesla destination charger. That's a lot faster than your 240 volt charger. But then only 40 minutes to reach 80% on a 150 kilowatt hour charger, and only 20 minutes on that 250 kilowatt hour charger. So we're getting really close to the point where, you will be able to charge your car as quickly as you can fill it up with gas. At that point, the batteries will also be a lot cheaper. Here's the downside of that rapid technological improvement. All of the old infrastructure, all those old cars, they might not be able to use. Old cars might not be able to take advantage of the current charging speeds, because remember, that's a lot of heat and stress on the components. There are usually limits on how quickly they can charge, because it can get too hot from charging. It's like when you charge any device, put stress on the battery. Newer batteries are going to be able to handle this a lot better. We'll have better cooling technologies. We'll see about that. But the old chargers are going to be worthless, because who's going to want to wait an hour to do something that should take 2 minutes? And we'll have spent billions and billions of dollars on this outdated technology that's worthless and has to be thrown away or recycled. The only reason that this charging network at the current level of technology is built is because you have companies like Tesla that mostly sell credits on the amount of charging being done to in states and countries that require you to, buy clean credits. It mostly is just like a regulatory credit farming scheme. In the absence of subsidies, in the absence of these requirements, I do think that the EV technology would still mature to a point where, it eventually would be cheaper and better for a lot of people to have an EV, and they'd make that choice voluntarily when it's right for them. But the rollout of these infrastructure projects at the federal level, the obfuscation of who's collecting the credits from the charger that you paid for, with the electricity that you paid for, and the property you paid for, that's a bit of a challenge as well. And we're going to see, I guess, in the next few years, what we're going to do with all of the older EVs and chargers that we don't know what to do with anymore.
Well, thank you, Kenneth, for covering this and breaking it down for us. Readers or listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com. And this has been California in Focus.